Tonight on Ukraine Today, battlefield situation. Ukraine's defense forces are advancing near Dobropillia. Strikes deep inside Russia. The Wall Street Journal reports that the US will provide Ukraine with intelligence for targeting Russia's oil and energy infrastructure. Nuclear and radiation threat. A Russian strike caused an emergency situation at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. The situation at the Zaporizhzhia NPP is also critical. Kremlin's expanding aggression. In Europe, a Russian agent was detained while preparing terror attacks in Poland, Lithuania and Germany. All this and more right now. Hello, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get to the news. Ukraine's defense forces are moving forward near Dobropillia. This was reported by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, General Oleksandr Syrsky. According to him, in the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces regained control over 2 more square kilometers of territory. Assault units advanced by nearly 1.5 kilometers in some directions. For more about what's happening on and around the front line, in our military report.
Only 1 out of 10 Russian assault troops reaches Ukrainian positions in the area of Novopavlivka and Dobropillia in the Donetsk region. This is reported by the Institute for the Study of War. Russian forces continue offensive operations in this direction in an attempt to break through to Pokrovsk before the winter cold sets in.
A representative of the Ukrainian brigade operating in the Pokrovsk direction reported that Russian infantry continues to attack in small assault groups once or twice a day. The increased range of Russian strike drones expands the area of impact and complicates Ukrainian logistics. The representative noted that Russian forces in this direction are also experiencing logistical problems and that Russian troops have to deliver supplies on foot in small groups to avoid detection by Ukrainian drones.
In the Pokrovsk and Dobropillia directions, the occupier continues to actively assault Ukrainian positions using infiltration tactics.
This is not an entrenched enemy, it's a single group. Groups of 3 to 5 people infiltrate our territory during assaults, and they need to be cleared out. This is, so to speak, territory where they haven't established a foothold anywhere. And at this stage, we can also clear them out.
The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has long been aware of this tactic and is successfully countering it. Out of 155 battles in a day, 51 were recorded specifically in the Pokrovsk direction.
It should be noted that at present, the enemy is actively trying to use the tactic of infiltrating small groups into the rear areas of our troops with the aim of further building up their forces and advancing in our rear. Andrei Khanatov, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
And these are the actions of the Ukrainian Burevi Brigade in the Kupiansk direction. About 100 Russian soldiers have been neutralized. Dozens of drones have been hit and more than 30 shelters have been destroyed. Radio equipment has been disabled and a heavy flamethrower system TOS-1A Solentsepiok has been destroyed. In the Kharkiv region, Ukrainian drones are actively hindering Russian attacks, forcing Russian troops to avoid mechanized assaults since August 2025 and to advance mostly on foot. What are the Ukrainian armed forces successfully taking advantage of? This is a video of the elimination of a Russian soldier. In the same area, an occupier is forced to fend off a Ukrainian drone with a log, but it's all in vain. In the Sumy direction, Ukrainian special forces managed to clear positions that the Russian army had held for a long time. At the site, they found the phone of the eliminated enemy, Nikolai Prusov, who complains about the lack of supplies and rotations.
They took apart the whole jar of bouillon, just to cut open the condensed milk. That's how much you want to eat here.
Meanwhile, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, according to the publication Hip State, the Russians have advanced in Verbov and Berezove. There have also been successes in the area of Novoivanivka in the Zaporizhzhia region. This was also reported by Russian public channels. They write that during the fighting, the occupiers took control of more than 10 square kilometers of territory. But considering that in the past few days, the armed forces have liberated almost 20 times more territory, this temporary success won't last long.
In the past day, Russia lost at least 980 troops killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's already 1,112,460 occupiers. In addition, in the last 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 1 Russian tank, 2 armored vehicles, 12 artillery systems and dozens of other enemy weapons and equipment. The United States will provide Ukraine with intelligence for long-range strikes on Russia's oil and energy facilities. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The report says that President Trump has already signed the authorization. Earlier, White House officials confirmed that the US is considering supplying Ukraine with Tomahawks and Barracuda missiles. In the temporarily occupied Crimea, the fuel situation is getting worse. Kremlin's proxy Sergei Aksyonov admits that at gas stations, people can only buy no more than 20 liters of fuel per person. Just recently, it was 30 liters. Meanwhile, Russia's war is putting nuclear safety across Europe at risk. After a strike on an energy facility in Slavutych, the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant reported an emergency. The new safe confinement was left without electricity. This structure isolates the destroyed fourth reactor and prevents radioactive leaks. Specialists are now working to stabilize the plant's operation. The Zaporizhzhia NPP is also in crisis. For over 10 days, it has had no main power supply and is running only on diesel generators. The International Atomic Energy Agency warns that fuel reserves will last about 10 days. If backup systems fail, the nuclear fuel could melt down. This is a serious nuclear and radiation threat. Fires, blackouts and 2 people injured. That's the result of Russia's strike on Odessa region. Transportation infrastructure was hit, a private house was damaged, and there are power outages. Kyiv region was also attacked. In Bucha, an abandoned sanatorium caught fire. 1 person was injured. Russia also hit a residential area in Balaklia, Kharkiv region. A missile struck the ground near a 5-story apartment building. An 88-year-old woman was killed. 16 more people were injured. French special forces seized a Russian tanker suspected of violating Denmark's airspace. Investigators believe drones may have been launched from it. That's reported by La Parisienne. We are following the story. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky commented on Russia's drone provocations. Addressing the European Council meeting, he said this:
Russian drones and Russian threats are now a real issue for all countries on the shores of the Baltic Sea, and that means for all coastal countries in Europe. That's most of Europe. Today, it's drones. Tomorrow, it could be missiles. The day after, new technologies, who knows? And we all need strong protection, every country in Europe, which means all of us together. No country can protect itself alone. It's a big mistake, even if only a few still think this way, to say we don't have a coastline or we are surrounded by others, so we don't need to act together. Today in Europe, nothing about security is separate from the rest of Europe. And this understanding must unite us.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. Now's the time to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Please also share this video so as many people as possible can see it. Thank you and glory to Ukraine. In Europe, a Russian agent was detained while planning terror attacks in Poland, Lithuania and Germany. He intended to use drones and even explosives hidden inside food cans.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
This adds to suspicions that Russia could be preparing a major strike on Poland and the Baltic states. And let's be honest, nobody would be surprised if the Kremlin tried to stage it under a false flag. But how real is this threat? More in our report.
The Kremlin is expanding the geography of the war. Europe and NATO are preparing for a possible invasion by the Russian dictator. It needs to be done subtly. Drones are increasingly violating the airspace of European countries. Such incidents have been recorded in Denmark, Norway, Romania and Poland. In this way, the Kremlin is increasing pressure on Europe through hybrid attacks and preparations for a large-scale conflict. Poland remains the primary country at risk. The strike on September 10th is a deliberate, carefully planned Russian strategy.
Poland is currently one of the priorities for the Russian Federation. One of, not the only one, but one of them. Why? Because it is precisely through Polish territory that a huge amount of military cargo is being transported towards Ukraine, to the Ukrainian fronts, and Russia is well aware that if this route is cut off, Ukraine will be left with its logistics disrupted, in other words, severed, and it will have to be rebuilt. At that point, it would be possible to achieve some real territorial gains.
And in the event of an invasion of Poland, Russia could be preparing a force of 100,000 to 150,000 troops to implement the Suwałki corridor scenario.
At the present moment, up to 40,000 Polish military troops have been significantly redeployed directly to the extensive borders with the Republic of Belarus. Similar actions are being carried out in the Baltic states as well. In addition, a naval component of joint NATO exercises is currently taking place in the Baltic Sea.
There are also increasing reports that Russia may attack the Baltic states. Since the start of the major war in Ukraine, Russian forces have increased the number of provocations in the Baltic region.
At present, it's clear that the Russian Federation does not have the forces for a full-scale invasion like the one carried out in Ukraine. Although our military notes that over the past 8 months, there has indeed been a gradual monthly decrease in the amount of Russian equipment being destroyed at the front. In other words, the graphs are trending lower and lower, starting from January-February. This is specifically for 3 types of weaponry: air defense systems, tanks, and infantry fighting vehicles. So there is a lot of room here for speculation. Why? Either they have started producing fewer tanks and IFVs, or they are producing them but hiding them. Maybe they are stockpiling them somewhere for some other purpose.
Another pretext to start a war is the Estonian city of Narva. It is located in the east of the country. A small river separates it from Russia. Already today, in the narratives of Kremlin propaganda, Narva is portrayed as a city where Russians are actively oppressed by Estonians.
These are roughly 200 to 300 so-called Gherkins riflemen who could infiltrate a populated area, say Narva, and carry out the same scenario as they did in Crimea, as they did in Donetsk. They seize the post office, the telephone exchange, the telegraph, the mayor's office, and declare the creation of some kind of People's Republic. And then they ask Putin to send in troops. The scenario is actually quite realistic.
Only in Russia, everyone is shouting from all sides that they supposedly don't want a war with Europe and NATO. Alka former President Medvedev insists that Russia has supposedly always come to Europe as a liberator, not as an invader. And also Putin's loyal minion Maria Zakharova has started accusing Ukraine of preparing an anti-Russian provocation. Supposedly, Russian drones are being used in Poland and Romania to push NATO into a war against Russia.
This message came from the Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation. I saw it yesterday. It was a very funny message. Let me explain why it's funny. The Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation is a paper tiger. Actually, it's not even a paper tiger, it's more like a paper teddy bear. This organization isn't respected even within the Russian security hierarchy. They're not respected, not feared, and not seen as authoritative even by ordinary local police officers. And so, all that's left for this service is to make things up, generate some random ideas, random conspiracies, just to show that their work matters.
In response to Russia's threats, NATO and EU countries are urgently strengthening their defenses, building a wall of drones, and discussing providing Ukraine with air defense systems to create a shield. After Russia violated Polish airspace, NATO launched Operation Eastern Guard. Denmark has also called up several hundred reservists for duty. The soldiers have been ordered to report as soon as possible.
At the moment, air units are being redeployed to the territory of Poland and Romania. These are NATO's flanks. In addition, the redeployment is comprehensive. Units from NATO countries are being deployed to the territory of the Baltic states. Naval exercises are being conducted in the waters of the Baltic Sea. It should be noted that the newest United States aircraft carrier is currently in Danish waters. And this is a serious signal to the Russian Federation. In addition, French Rafale jets have been deployed to Polish territory, and these are capable of carrying nuclear weapons.
In fact, Russia began threatening NATO as far back as 10 years ago. At that time, Turkey, led by Erdogan, was in the crosshairs. Back in 2015, a Russian bomber violated the country's airspace. According to Turkish authorities, before it was shot down by a Turkish F-16 fighter jet, the Russian plane did not respond to warnings. Now, Putin's strategic goal is the collapse of the collective West and the undermining of trust among NATO members.
And now some unpleasant truth. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, the European Union has helped Ukraine with a sum 1.5 times smaller than what European countries paid Putin for his oil and gas. And it's not just Hungary and Slovakia. This money funds the Kremlin's war machine. Up next, when and how Europe will stop financing Russia's war.
They condemn the war, but continue to pay for it. 4 EU countries have paid Russia more money for gas than they have given in aid to Ukraine. Billions of euros that could have saved lives are being turned into weapons that kill Ukrainians. According to the Belgian branch of Greenpeace, from the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022 to June 2025, France, Belgium, Spain and the Netherlands paid Russia 34.3 billion euros for gas supplies. During the same period, the combined aid from these 4 countries to Ukraine amounted to 21.2 billion euros.
Such trade continues to bring billions from Europe into Russia. It is carried out by energy companies whose main offices are located in Europe, including TotalEnergies, Shell, Naturgy and CEF. They provide and continue to supply gas from Russia to Europe for the coming years, according to the Greenpeace study.
The supply scheme has long since changed. It's not just about direct purchases of pipeline gas. The lion's share of contracts is for liquefied natural gas, which Europe receives through terminals in the Netherlands, Belgium and Spain. These countries have become the key transit gateways for Russian fuel. And although European leaders loudly proclaim a reduction in dependence on Moscow, the facts say otherwise. Overall, 8 EU countries are currently importing Russian gas: France, Belgium, Spain, the Netherlands, Hungary, Slovakia, Greece and Portugal. The main beneficiary of these supplies is the Yamal LNG project. Just in 2022 to 2024, its revenue from exports to Europe amounted to about $40 billion. Of that, no less than 9.5 billion went into the budget of the aggressor country. Analysts have calculated that this amount would be enough for Russia to produce almost 10 million artillery shells, or more than 2,700 Shahed attack drones, or about 2,700 T-90M tanks.
Just business, nothing personal. Europe, as it has been all this time for the past 100 years, is no longer the same. Now it's all about their own interests, needs and so on, and that's all that matters to them. After all, the price Russia offers for LNG is at least 15% lower than global prices. They count their money first and foremost, and then everyone tries to profit from this war. Ukraine will be the first to suffer, everyone else will follow. Unfortunately, the Europeans did not become our true partners. In words, they are indeed partners, but in reality, the sovereign countries that genuinely help us are precisely those that could potentially suffer significantly from the aggressive actions of the Russian Federation.
It was only in July that Brussels decided to take a new step. Starting from January 2027, the EU does not ban the import of Russian liquefied gas, nor transactions with Rosneft and Gazprom Neft. But critics are convinced that this is a belated step, taken only after pressure from the US and personally from Donald Trump, who directly blamed Europe for financing Russia's war against Ukraine.
To be honest, don't believe in a 100% rejection of energy resources, that Europe is really giving up Russian energy resources. That's one thing. Secondly, the model itself might just fundamentally change. And what I truly mean is, if Europe is currently buying energy resources directly from Russia, then, as we can clearly see, a sort of significant border circle is steadily forming around Europe, where, in fact, the Americans are actively taking control of the crucial gas sector as well. This specifically includes the Nord Stream pipelines, and in Bulgaria, for example, they plan to effectively take control of vital gas storage facilities and the same essential gas flows by the year 2026. So it could very well happen that in 2027 or 2028, Europe won't be buying directly from Russia, but will instead be buying from Russian companies through various intermediaries.
Europe understands very well that replacing Russian gas with American gas could seriously impact its budget in the future. At the same time as gas, Russia is actively exporting oil, doing so despite the sanctions. To circumvent the restrictions, the Kremlin uses what is known as a shadow fleet. The West prohibits buying Russian oil at prices above $60 per barrel and using the services of major insurance companies. Russian tankers operating as part of the shadow fleet are forced either to insure themselves in Russia or to go without insurance. Most often, these ships sail under the flags of countries that do not comply with international regulations, and the tanker owners are shell companies that change frequently to avoid responsibility.
Europe has almost completely stopped buying Russian oil except for Slovakia and Hungary. According to
data from the Russian Price Index Center, in the last weeks of August, Russia's maritime oil exports increased by 21%. That is 455,000 tons per day. This is the highest summer figure, although it is still less than in August 2024. At the same time, 52% of the oil is shipped to unknown destinations, 28% to China, 14% to Turkey, and about 80% of the shipments go.
to India. I am absolutely ready to give up Russian oil, but then please let me have the crucial opportunity to buy it either from Iran or Venezuela, because there simply aren't that many readily available free oil capacities in the entire world. That's precisely why, in this particular model, a certain essential oil corridor is currently being established or significantly expanded. Whether the United States will actually be willing to give the green light to increase the production or sale of Iranian or Venezuelan oil on the market is still a question.
And while some are looking for ways to save money by buying from a terrorist state, every barrel of Russian gas and oil turns into shells, tanks, and drones that kill people. In this system, every delivery leaves a trace. Ukraine is paying for this energy luxury with the highest possible price, with the lives of its citizens and destroyed cities, with the lives of its citizens and ruined cities.
Ukraine has completed the internal screening of its legislation to align with EU standards. That's according to President Zelensky. He said our country is fully ready to open membership negotiations. However, European Commissioner Marta Kos reminded that this requires the agreement of all 27 EU member states. Hungary is still against it. Finally, today is a day of mourning in Odessa region. Severe weather took the lives of 10 people. A special commission is investigating the tragedy. Meteorologists warn that extreme rainfall will soon become the new normal. We need to prepare for it now. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time.